so this last panel, like she throws the eggs out the window, and we don't see yet the result. We're just gonna wait on that one panel. And so here now she rushes and takes the wheel, and we can see that Turbo is just like, bludgeoning this guy with her spiked gloves. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Turbo Pit Fighter, the making of. I am Jake Jacobs. I'm a penciler and script writer, and I'm here with my buddy Kurt. He is the inker, and he's my co-host here and co-developer. And we are a weekly podcast where we get together and we draw and ink this comic book, and we talk about it and plan it and go over all the finer points of what happened during the week in the world of comics. And and this is another episode in which we're going to be working on issues 1 and 2 simultaneously. I'm doing pencils and Kurt is doing inks. How you doing, Kurt?
Fantastic, Jake.
Yeah. So we were just chatting a little bit pre-game about new book that you picked up, and we're gonna go over, of course, as we do every week, where we're at in the story and where the story is going to be going. Because it takes a lot of time to plan a graphic novel and what we're planning on as a six comic graphic novel that'll be compiled into a little cute book that we see hopefully in the bookstore or you can order or whatever. And so where are you at right now?
I am on page 15.
Uh-huh.
This is panel 1, page 15. I did finish, my finishing is I do, I call it like about 80%. It's basically a, a really heavy initial first laydown. And then I will return and start doing more heavily spotted black areas and transition, and then to values, and then even bringing back in whites with
Right.
white ballpoint pen paint, that type of thing, because I really do dig a lot of rendering values. um, Reality is one thing. I could say like, oh, I want these things to look realistic, but I don't ever want to lose the cartooning bit. And that's
Right.
one of the reasons I enjoy working on your pencils, because I feel like share the same sentimentality in making comics.
Yeah, we definitely, I see you're doing Turbo's shirt, and then there's Turbo's pants. And Turbo's pants are always, which are like short pants, right? They're kind of like yoga pants or whatever, but they're always a good opportunity for shiny Charles Burns lines, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then her top, like what you have there, it's very high contrast black and white, but actually it's red and black in real life, or like, if you see the
Like a
cover,
red
here's
sheen.
here's what I had on this workup of the cover. I kind of made it gray and red, but
Oh, well, yeah, the shirt. Right, right.
in the black and white insides, it's definitely dark and light, and the light, has all of its shading too, and so the dark has all of its shading, and then there's just the pullouts, right, the little highlights. Now you don't work with white after the fact, right? You never do like white brush or anything, right?
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm heading towards.
Oh,
I
you
like
do.
building all the. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't do that as much, but it's really good when I do like think about it and sit down and do it when I do inking. But yeah, so that's why Turbo's costume, or whatever you want to call it, is always so interesting to me, because it's always like what I'm doing right now. I'm penciling issue issue 2, page 7, and I'm on the bottom panel. We'll go through the continuity in a minute, but right now it's like the contours of her shirt, are always interesting, because we made it striped, but going over her shoulders and muscles and her breasts and everything, it's always like these peaks and valleys and lights and darks. And
Yeah.
so and I know, like, when I'm pencil that, I do leave a lot to the inker. My pencils are sometimes tight, sometimes really, really tight, right? Like, here's panel one of this page. This is pretty good, but the reason is because the characters are large, and then when you're drawing the
Yeah.
characters, like, in the background, they get smaller and smaller, right? Like this guy, it's hard to to fit all these little rendering lines in there. So you really trust your inker to finish those things. And it goes through the style of the penciler, and then it goes through the style of the inker. And that's one of the most interesting things to talk about in comic art, is what happens when this penciler meets this inker, right?
Yeah.
And that's something I geek out on in the Marvel pantheon. My of course my favorite inker of all time being Terry Austin, who was like the crispest, cleanest inker ever of John Byrne and the X-Men, and they had like a 12-year run or something. It was crazy. I don't know, maybe it was only 8 years, but in my mind, they had this. John Byrne and Terry Austin had this incredible run. After Dave Cockrum hands over the reins of X-Men, right? And this is, you're talking about the 70s, right? I think Dave Cockrum steps in on the reboot of the new X-Men with Storm and Colossus and Wolverine. And Dave Cockrum was great. He had his style, and he definitely is credited as inventing those characters, designing the costumes. Nightcrawler is amazing, right? And the death of
Yeah.
Banshee, the death of Thunderbird, and the guest appearances of Banshee and Sunfire. But then they get to this point, and Cockrum, it can't keep up the pace. I'm assuming he couldn't keep up the pace. That's what I'm thinking. And he just got burnt out, and or maybe Byrne just like elbowed him out. Because Byrne was this hot shot coming in from Canada, and he was so amazing. So not sure how it worked in the internal Marvel politics, but at the end of the day, John Byrne took over the pencils for the X-Men in, I probably want to say, like 77, 78, 79, maybe, I don't know. And then he got this inker, Terry Austin, and so that's a great combination. Not that John Byrne is my favorite penciler, it's just, he was so just, facile, and so efficient, and just great in storytelling. And the number one comic series of that era, the X-Men, it took over Spider-Man, it took over everything else. And it was number one for got to be 10 years, maybe 20 years, going into the later era when John Romita Jr. took over. But um yeah, we could talk about great pencilers. We could talk about great inkers. One thing that Kurt and I have in common is we love the old classic black and white inking style of Frank Frazetta and Mark Schultz and Tim Vigil. And there's only a few, maybe, like you put Brunner in there, Frank Brunner in there. You put um, Bernie Wrightson in there, right? And there's really only a few like that. I don't know if you want to put Dave Stevens in there and Mike Kaluta, but a couple of names that just pop off into the head. But you get,
Even like Barry Windsor Smith,
yeah,
because then because when you drop Kaluta and Wrightson's name, then you got Smith and Jeffrey Catherine Jones. They're all living in New York, and they called it the studio. And these were the original art comic book guys.
right,
So they were the ones that were bringing in all this heavy-handed art reference from outside of comics and penetrating, mainly like, to be more honest, like American illustration,
Yeah,
the the Pyle school, the Wyeth school, those Arthur Rackham. Well, that's
good
England,
one.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
but I think Barry Windsor might be an outlier in that list because if I remember right, I think he tends to ink his own stuff. Is that right? Yeah.
yep,
So he's a little different. Some of these other people are pencilers, and I gotta say, like, you know, it's not that I don't like inking. I love sitting down and inking, but it takes a long time. And wouldn't you rather, like, if you had limited time, as we all do, wouldn't you rather pencil 2 books a month than ink and pencil 1 book a month, right? I
yeah.
mean that
It's the
that's
it's the
even
it's the timing
that's even
part.
assuming you could
Yeah,
handle 1 book a month, right? I mean, whatever you can
yeah,
handle, you can just you could just get more done because if you're able to pencil, right? That's like the tough breakdowns. You're doing all the angles. You're thinking of everything. Where's the word balloon gonna be? How much background do I do? Like, how do I get the sound effect in here? And so, penciling is a very kind of cerebral thing. Where I mean, because you've also penciled, all
uh-huh.
throughout your career, and so you know what's involved. But um, it's really a lot of planning and a lot of arranging and designing, moving things around, erasing and redoing and revising. Whereas the inker, just grabs your ink pen and just start to work and start to work on your craft, your contrast, your balance, your hatching, your contoured line hatching. I really do love inking too, but it's a different kind of a role.
Well, the going back to our shared love and enthusiasm for black and white comics, Savage Sword of Conan it will often be referred, for me because that's where my heart and soul lies. So one of the I think greatest teams uh, uh, in penciling and inking, and I kind of have this like dream that they just never really discussed it. It just happened that way. Was John Buscema and Klaus Janson.
Really?
And
So
yes,
are you
yes,
talking about because
I
Klaus Janson has had a lot of versions of himself. I was always a fan. And I think he came to prominence. For me, he came to prominence in the Defenders. He had a pretty long run on the Defenders, and he has a style that sometimes I would consider a little scratchy. Um, sometimes a little
yes,
quick. Like a little like a rapid style. And
yes,
then you get to his work on Daredevil, and he worked under Frank Miller or behind Frank Miller on Frank Miller's rise to meteoric fame on with Daredevil.
yep,
The classic Elektra arc
yep.
and the Bullseye stories and the Kingpin. So Claus Jensen was right there in the middle of all that. For some of Frank Miller's best work ever for Marvel. Um, so now you bring us through your Claus Janson journey.
Well, my first official comic book is the second issue of Daredevil that Frank Miller and Klaus Janson did. And I got it from a buddy of mine, Dante Whitley, sixth grade, elementary school. Um, we exchanged comics, but I was still getting my books from 7-Eleven, and my 7-Eleven was only really stocking like, Charlton books, DC. But I didn't care. Like, like I said, it actually behooved me to keep that going because he seemed to enjoy those books more because where he was getting them, he was getting all Marvel stuff. So I was actually introduced to the, the Daredevil Miller Janson through Dante Whitley, and I still have the comic books. He gave me that issue, and I think he ended up finding either the issue before or the issue after, and um, you know, I believe everybody in comics, whether you're just a fan reader or you're an artist, there's a moment where your world changes. And it's undescribable even
Yeah,
now.
it's called 12 Years
But
Old.
I
That's
can,
the moment
I,
where
well, there's this like, for me, it's almost like I look back and it just it rushed over me. It was very quick reading. You know what I mean? I couldn't appreciate George Perez and all this noodling and detailing and then every panel had 16
yeah.
word balloons in it, and I have dyslexia, so reading really isn't a part of comic books for me, other than maybe trying to find
Oh,
out more
really? Do you
information.
just turn all
But
those word balloons into Charlie Brown teachers? Oh, really?
pictures,
Yeah.
pictures. Yeah, I mean, I do like my reading of it is of a comic is always visual first. So and I'm not talking about flip through it in 35 seconds. I'll flip through it for 35 minutes. Then I'll put it down. Then I come back and then I'll do it again, but then I'll stop places and then I'll read the balloon and go, "Oh, this character's name is Stick. Oh, her name is Electra. Oh, that." And then it just sort of there's more impact. But those books, they just and it's for me, it's like chasing something, because Miller's squeaking around the Kirby, figuratization and it's just, and then Jansen is just sort of like, I don't know, maybe rumor has it that there was a lot of Jansen filling and finishing Miller, because he was, young and all over the place in New York City. But but either way, I believe, just like him, Jansen and Buscema and like King Conan, and when they launched that series, that there's just this silent communication between the two as artists. And I would hope that that's true, because that's how I envision it, is that there's an immense amount of trust and respect, yet there's anticipation of what you're going to get from both sides. So there's a freedom. There's just a point blank freedom there. I think a lot of, because the next level for me in pencil or inker is John Buscema and Alfredo Akala.
Oh, yeah.
But even Akala is a bit too much. I kind of strive towards that, but what I use is like Klaus Janson to draw myself back, and get a little freer. What was the term you used? Um, oh, I can't remember now, but
Well, yeah. So you're talking about, I think, not the Conan color comic uh, era. You're talking about
yeah,
King Conan, which was a black and white magazine where I think they loosened up the reins on these creators a bit, right? And we were talking about Planet of the Apes and those great runs that they had with
yes,
Mike Plug
yeah,
and and they did bring in some of these I think they were Filipino artists, right? Like
uh-huh,
Alcala, and I'm not sure where Alec Nino is from, and Rudy Nebres, but they found like
yep,
these great artists and inkers, and and of course they probably worked cheaper because they were in a freaking dictatorship and everything, right? But
yeah,
those books were really amazing to me. I mean, I remember they did the Iron Fist story where they had Colleen Wing. which was just like, a female character, and Misty Knight. Like Iron Fist was in, I think it was called The Savage Hands of Kung Fu. And I'm
Yeah.
just reading that, like, there was a copy in my school, and it was lying around in like the book library, and because it was a black and white magazine, slightly larger format, magazine format, they didn't have any, like, they didn't have the same censorship restrictions. And so this is, of course, where Red Sonja has her rape origin, right, story,
Yep.
because there's the less restrictions on that. And then in the Iron Fist story of Colleen Wing, she is um, she's captured, the way I remember it, she's captured, she's put on heroin by her captor, and then like used, as a sex object, by and then she kind of learns martial arts, as a way to to be reborn. And I remember, yeah, I was probably like seventh grade, and I remember reading this, and I'm like, wow, I'm in school. I guess they just thought this was a comic book. Nobody but looked inside. My English teacher, Mr. Frederick, didn't realize that, and then I'm just sitting there in the corner of this classroom, and those, when you're that age, it really is impactful, to read storylines like that. And so the reins were loosened up. And then the same thing goes for art. We were talking about the Planet of the Apes, and I still haven't figured out what the art style that they were using, but it was some kind of pencily, charcoaly style, which was very, very quick, but very, very interesting, on the Planet of the Apes. And
It's called a grease
yeah,
pencil,
it might
Chinese
be that,
marker.
and it might be like
Yeah.
all of the above. I got to go back and see it, so I would love to see those old comics again sometime. The comic magazines, the Planet of the Apes. They just had these great storylines with this character named Jason, and they were riding horses, and they were you know they were there was good apes and bad apes. Urko was the bad
Yep.
guy, and then they had this character that was like mentally gone, but he called himself like the Light Keeper or something, or the Keymaster or something. He kept talking about, in cryptically. So a lot of good runs back there when people were able to be a lot more creative in the magazine format. I think those are probably going to end up being very collectible in the cult, the with the cult collectors. So let me show you what's going on this page, because I'm almost done with it. At least the
That's seven, right? Is that seven or
Yeah.
six?
So I just want to go over what's happening here. This is when the ice cream truck is under siege by the hate breeders. They jump on top of the roof. They here we have from the last panel, continue when we last left off. We had this splash panel of Turbo smacking the crap out of this hate breeder, and kind of knocked him out of the picture. But then right away on the next page, another guy is going to plop right on top of her and put her in a head yoke, and he's going to say something. We don't know what yet. If you have any ideas, let me know. If anybody wants to email, you could email us. And
Leave it in the
Right,
comments below.
nyrteacher at gmail.com. One T. But this guy's going to fall on her, and then she is going to promptly react by judo flipping him into oblivion. Wah! There's going to be some narration here, or there's going to be some dialogue from the little robot guy. That's why it's a little squared. And then the next guy is already making his way into the interior of the truck, where he will smash the gopher. Gopher is what I call the robot that drives the van. Um, he will come in and incapacitate him. Cruck, it says, and knocks his arm off. and he's going to have a dialogue balloon here where he's going to say steering capability disabled. He'll say something else. Um, Meanwhile, in right next to him, Turbo is getting a face full of blood splattered in her face because the guy is going under the wheels. And I know this is probably not that realistic where the blood would go up rather than back, but this is, yeah,
This
it's
is
comic
comic
books
books.
for you. You know, he just hit the ground in a certain way. And then here's Turbo, going to be saying something. I'm not sure what, like, hey, watch out, this guy's coming in, something to that effect. Plus, we have this other guy coming in on the side. We can just see him hanging down and looking in creepy through the window. Next panel, we see Turbo grabs the guy that barged in a headlock. Um, Trophy Girl is being instructed to quick take the wheel, and she says, "What about the eggs?" Those are, of course, these little devices she has gathered up in her arms. These are called tumble wire. What do I call them? Tumble
Number
wires.
wires.
And so
Yeah.
Turbo says, "Dump them out the side window now." So next panel is her just doing that so she could free up her hands to grab the wheel. She's going to be saying something, don't know what. I was thinking like "Here Goes Nothing" or "Let It Rip," but those sounded very contrived to me. So if you have any ideas what Trophy Girl is saying as she's dropping the tumble wire devices out the side window to ensnare the wheels of the
Tumble away.
right, something like that.
It's like, well, I mean, just a like, like her voice, I don't quite have in my head yet. So she, right up to this point, she doesn't seem to be a person who makes any kind of audible
Well, as
connection
of
with
late,
people, you know?
everything she's been saying is like self doubt, right? Like, I'm not
Yeah,
ready for this.
yeah,
What if I miss?
yeah,
What are these
yeah,
things? I'm not a
yeah.
fighter. Blah blah blah. Right. So that's where.
Yeah, she's not like sassing anybody, she's not sassing
Right.
Turbo. She's
Well,
not
she's in
sassing,
survival mode
you know.
and she's really freaked out, and she's just trying to survive here and play her part. And Turbo is just like so under control, but she's hammering the shit out of these guys one by one, and so her dance card is full. Um. Anyway, so I was kind of torn here because this might not be my best continuity. Here in my roughs, I had planned out where she was going to take the wheel, and then she was going to throw the eggs out. But then I realized that doesn't make sense. She had them gathered up in her arms, so some of these things kind of change as I go. Because as you're drawing things, you're like, oh wait a minute, how is she holding these things? She has them gathered up in both arms, so she will have to throw them out the window. So I want to show the tumble wires releasing, and you're gonna love inking that. And I apologize in advance, but we're gonna be drawing, like 3,000 wires uncoiling out of a little device. Um, I show it here, sproing, 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 and then it's gonna get tangled up in the motor.
And that's a solid panel. That's just going to be a solid panel of like just like
Right. So here's
technical
exactly where I'm going to be
action.
starting. Like right now, it's going to be finishing up this page where she takes the wheel, right? And so I worked it out. So this last panel, like she throws the eggs out the window, and we don't see yet the result. We're just gonna wait on that one panel. And so here now she rushes and takes the wheel, and we can see that Turbo is just like bludgeoning this guy with her spiked gloves. She says, "I have the wheel. How does this work?" And Turbo will say, "Steer straight, right foot on right foot on pedal to right foot pedal to floor, something like that, right? I don't know how we're gonna say it.
Yeah,
Use
yeah,
right foot,
right.
um yeah
With your
right,
right foot.
right foot floor the pedal, floor the gas pedal, right? but it's not actually gas anymore.
Yeah.
It's electricity at this point. So it's a floor of the pet.
Right.
Well, so this is just a placeholder for now, but it'll Um, and then she will say something here in this word balloon, which will also show her, doubt and misgivings, right? And she's still in this like kind of mode, like she doesn't understand, what's going on. How do I do this? Blah blah blah. So in the next page, um, I originally had that we show how tricky the mountain pass is going to be, and like full of potholes and full of like obstacles and debris, and how like bumpy and uphill it goes. But I'm going to have to move that down because we now need to uncoil the spring things. So this is going to be the panel up on top. This goes here, right, where the eggs are unleashing their wires, sproing, 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 right in front of the wheels of the motorcycles, and then we will show this. This will be number one. This will be number two, where the motorcycles plural go flipping around, and they get incapacitated, and then we will have panel three here, where the van is going up on two wheels, and these guys are all hanging off of it, and in silhouette, Turbo is throwing one guy out the window. And then four will be this mountain pass and showing how treacherous it is. And then in panel five, somebody's going to throw a Molotov cocktail into the van, which means that they've gotten so desperate that they no longer feel that they can defeat Turbo and take the van intact. At this point, they're just trying to destroy the van and just, stop them by any.
Well, it's also they
They
want
want trophy,
trophy.
right? They want, and so, maybe they feel like they can flush her out, but yeah, but they
Nobody will
also
have
want,
her.
they also want the truck too. So this is going to be one, two, three, four, five panels. I have this whole page planned out to be all horizontal slats, and I'm just about to start that now. But before I do, some more little process here is you might notice my backgrounds are very incomplete here, here, right? I'm just doing the foregrounds for now, and I'm going to tackle the backgrounds later. Um, I don't know when, but I'm just not feeling it right now. I just want to keep going with the action, and then I'm going to come back in later and do the background.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of comic book creators just cop out on the backgrounds, right? They just draw the foreground and they just make it like a color, or they just use this shiny manga lines. But not us. We have um, what I call indications, right? I tell my students, you don't have to draw every brick in a brick wall. You just draw a couple of bricks, and that's called an indication, right? Um, same thing with clouds, right? Just draw like, a couple of clouds, and then people get the idea. There's a lot of clouds up there, right? So, um, but it's nice when you could do it all. The problem is like there is a point where you're overdoing it and you're fighting with your foreground information, right? And because you're so detailed, I'm sure you've seen plenty of indie comics like that, where the person's trying to pour so much into every page that they don't have any appreciation between, what the focus of the reader should be, and what's necessary to convey the story, right? So that's what I always think about. Like, what do I need in this panel to convey the story? Like, where are they? What angle are they viewing at? And what else is going on in the background? Like fire and smoke, or else, maybe there's another guy crawling up. You might see a lot of that in issue one. In the background, there's another guy crawling away, or or licking his wounds, or whatever. So that's a little process right there. But yeah, now I'm just about to start blocking out this page with the horizontal slats. And so this is where we are. Um, I'm in the middle of this battle sequence, which is, I think, going to be 8 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages before things calm down. So this is going to be the real climactic, point of the book, and it's right around pages. I'm early on here. I'm only like 6, 7, 8, page 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 before we start going into this flashback sequence where there'll be a big climactic scene there too. So lots of action here. Um, and if you want me to catch you up on the planning, oh yeah, so we're all caught up on the planning of this issue. You can look at the last episode to see where this is.
Well, you still had 29 and 30,
Right,
page
I
29
still
and
haven't
30.
done page 29 and 30. And remember, we have the option of making page 29 and 30. Instead, we could make it page 1 and 2, right? We could always do that because my
Yes,
page
you're
1
right.
is not
Yep.
very, it's not what I would call a great, splash hook page. So we might actually, move that all the way up front because all we're doing is introducing the unbeknownst one and how cruel he is. Um, but I could see that at the end too. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm still not sure. What's another option is just to do a new page 1 that has a splash montage. Just like Paul Galassi did in Master of Kung Fu. You would open up the comic and you would see this great big title page. And Will Eisner did this really great too with the Spirit, right? You would just see the title of the book and like a little montage of all the characters that you're going to meet. And so, your eyes are hungrily looking at it all and taking it all in. And, and then you go into the page 1 of the story. But, I think the calculus there is, they were trying to get somebody who was flipping through the book on the newsstand and comes, and if the cover doesn't convince them to buy the comic, then page 1 will, right? Isn't that the thinking? Yeah.
Yeah.
So in
That's if they're, roaming around a comic book store or bookstore, searching for the next
right,
best
but what
thing.
what Denny O'Neil always taught, um, is that page 1 has got to be, and this goes for writing a chapter book, too. Page 1 has got to be grab the person's attention, suck them in to something, doesn't matter what. Just, get them to turn that next page and not walk away. Like it can't be a turn off, right? It's got to be. And so,
Right.
he says it should
Right.
always be posing a question that the person naturally wants answered, and because of that, they'll continue to keep reading. Like, somebody's walking through a door, or or something unusual, like, why is Captain America jumping out of a cake? Like whatever it is, pose some kind of brain teaser for people to have to want to go on and continue. So that's what we have to think about, because I do have a page 1 that just kind of, it has a splash on the bottom. If you remember page 1 of issue 2, it's the checkpoint. So there's just like two boxes. There's two panels on the top, and then the bottom is a giant explosion. So I don't know if that's our best bet. If we should go with a scene that introduces the cruelty of the unbeknownst one instead. See, I was kind of thinking, um, you know, in terms of the overall story, graphic novel, whatever, that it would be better to have that at the end of issue 2 rather than the beginning. But not sure. Not sure. Yeah.
A cliffhanger.
What to do? What to do? What to do?
Cross that
Mm-hmm.
river when we hit the bridge.
Exactly. And we're
Well, that's another thing that I've come to appreciate is you're not always going to have the answers at the time you most need them, and to respect that and just step away. Now, it doesn't mean that you stop drawing. Um, you just step away and you'll start working on something else, or then you do finish your day's worth of work, and you might be. I always have like a little sketch pad. It's actually just one of these
Yeah.
little spiral notepads. It's like 150 pages I get from the grocery store, and I'm constantly writing and doodling in it. And most of the times it's just like kind of like nonsense, like
Mm-hmm.
chatter in my brain. It might not even have anything to do with what I'm working on, but sometimes I will have that, and then it's right there in the living room, which I have to pass through to get
Right.
my morning oatmeal and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll look down at it. I'll look down at it and be like, oh yeah, yeah, but I wouldn't do it that way. I'd do it this way. Up, now I got my day's worth of work, and you got to get up there and
Right.
figure it
So
out.
yeah, a good artist always has a sketchbook going, and always it just has ideas. You're just jotting down, documenting. Sometimes it's words, sometimes it's a picture, a little piece of something. It goes back to Michelangelo had sketchbooks.
Scribbles.
Everybody has sketchbooks. Um, but yeah, in making comics, there's just so many little details to remember, like making a graphic novel. When you think about the Watchmen and such an airtight story, that has so many threads and so much. They're kind of bringing you through the decades of these superheroes, and this gets you to there, and that gets you to there, and this character comes back, later for this and that, and that. That writer, what was it, Alan Moore? Who was the writer of that? Yeah, he must have had like
Yep,
tons of
yep.
notebooks, right? He must have had like,
Well, have you ever heard that his scripts are um, well, not scripts per se. They're actually he does draw out a layout, and then that panel will have an attachment of words that could
right,
be a page long, describing
right,
every possible notion that he's having. About that, the importance of it, the how it's going to lead us to he's he's very over informative, and some
right, right. Well, yeah, well,
illustrations.
the Watchmen had all those bonus pages of like,
Yeah,
you know, like printed matter, and it would, they would write like they would include a technical report on the owl ship,
yeah,
like, and go through all that stuff. And I know that you were suggesting that we do stuff like that with maps and the diagram. We could do the diagrams of the gun, that's going to change everything. The radioactive pellet gun.
hmm
Um, so yeah, it's all great. I'm sure at some point they will, before Alan Moore is dead, there will be a making of Watchmen graphic novel documentary or YouTube or something, companion, right? Because
companion.
that's what everybody realizes now. It's like, wait a minute, I have all these notes. What do I do with them? Do I just throw them out, or do I, put them in a museum
No,
somewhere?
they're bonus. They're bonus material when you put the um,
Right,
graphic novel or trade paperback together because you've collected your six issues and everything. So, but yeah,
right.
so we're coming up on the 45-minute mark. Man, time flies when you're talking about
Mm-hmm.
comic books. So we want to keep these bite sized. Um, you know, uh, Another great episode talking the craft and
Yep,
those things that absolutely influence us.
yep. Can
And
do. We
down,
can we can just tease the next episode. The next episode, we're going to do a flip through of a Commandy graphic novel that a compilation tome that you got your hands on,
right,
and
right.
I will see if we can talk about if we can tease issue 3 a little bit. How about that?
Whoa. All right.
Hello.
But what I'm going to amend what you're saying because the next video we're gonna record, I want to have released actually this week. But the episode we just recorded is not going to come out for maybe like a month and a half because we, keep ourselves
Oh,
stored in
you
the
want to make that
library
one
and
of
pull
those
it
little
down. It's
side
a
piece
breakout.
episodes?
Yep, a
Okay, yeah,
breakout
gotcha.
video. So this is when you get to this point, we've probably released like five or six, well, seven or eight episodes of this issues of the book that we're going to comic book we're going to review. But
Right.
it's in conjunction to us in um, you know a post-apocalyptic romance comic. Being influenced by the past as artists and just general merrymaking. So, with
Yeah.
that being said, thank you so much for making it this far. And we consider you a turbo knot. And we see
We'll
you in the next episode.
see you in the next one.